Hey and welcome to Duke Nukem 3D on the Sega Saturn. So this version of Duke Nukem was actually released in 1997, and you can see here when we turn side to side it looks like Duke's actually tilting, which is very weird in my opinion. It takes a bit of getting used to for that not to be weird. But there are a fair few changes in these levels and we'll be going through them as we see them. I apologise also if my voice sounds a bit weird today. It is what it is and I am going to fight through, so much like Duke, let's get on with it. So that drop from the rooftop was actually a lot shorter than what we normally would see. You can also see there's no billboard at the end up there. It's interesting that they chose to get rid of the billboard rather than kind of leave it there. In fact, this whole area has a slightly different feel to it. And the biggest thing that you'll notice is that the textures actually warp when Duke turns around. And it's not just on the walls. It's actually the floor textures as well, which is kind of hilarious. So part of the reason for this is because this game's actually using something called the Slave Driver engine, which was developed by Lobotomy Software, rather than using the Build engine, which was developed by 3D Realms and Ken Silverman. Now, what that means is a lot of these levels have had to be recreated and reconstructed to get onto the Sega Saturn. You can see the more warping. It's actually funnier when you can sort of see text with the texture as it's warping. So a lot of these levels were actually converted or recreated specifically to be used in this engine, and what that kind of means is that they had the chance to go in and completely reduce the geometry used in these levels and the number of sectors. It also means that some things behave very differently. So for example, there's a bit more of a delay when you're shooting weapons, and we'll see that when we grab the shotgun later on and such, but you can kind of see that there's a fair few changes going on in this version of the game, and it's interesting to sit and talk about them. Let's take you out. So luckily you can still kind of look up and down at your own free will as long as you press the button to do so. The actual geometry in this area hasn't really changed all that much, but you can kind of tell that there's a slightly different lighting system implemented here, because everything kind of has a slightly brighter sheen to it in this version. I'd argue anyway. You'll also notice that the roof of this section has been lowered completely, and that means that the turret there can actually hit you, which it normally can't, making this bit a lot more difficult for... Oh wow, did I just really shoot myself? So yeah, it means you can actually shoot the turret pretty much at the start of the level, which, you know, normally you'd need the jetpack for that. But as we head back up this side of the level, you can kind of see that there's some health packs for us to grab here. And we're going to grab the atomic health from up here. But you'll notice that the ledges have actually been made a lot smaller out here, which is a choice certainly. So as we head inside here, you'll also notice that some of the doors behave differently. Now, from the levels that I've actually played of this seems to kind of be a mixed bag, because some levels just remove doors entirely, and then some of them have those sliding doors pretty much everywhere, even where they're kind of not appropriate. So yeah, this version of Duke Nukem actually does make quite a few changes to what you'd expect. Let's grab the health there. So one area that has actually changed quite a lot is round here. So when you head inside here, not only do the doors not sort of swing open, but they've actually just got rid of the doors here completely. I imagine that was to save sort of sectors and to sort of reduce the load in this area. But you can still tell this is definitely the cinema area, and this room hasn't been lowered at all, which is kind of interesting. We're going to take out the pig cop there. So I have noticed in this as well, explosives are a lot more generous in kind of how they behave, because in the normal Duke Nukem 3D they sort of graze enemies a lot more with the explosions, but in this version if an enemy sort of is close enough to the explosion, the game just kind of goes, well, we'll kill them for you. You'll also notice that they're still using the PC posters here, so they're not using the ones from the PS1 or the N64 versions of this. So I guess that's something, although good luck reading what he says on that, because it's kind of a big blur. So yeah, we're going to talk about the shotgun now. The shotgun is one of the bigger casualties in this version of the game. So I'm going to stand here and I'm going to just shoot as quickly as I can. And you're going to see that there's actually a bit of a delay when you've shot your shotgun. It's about half a second more. It means that you can't sort of shoot as frequently as you can with the PC version of the weapon. And it actually makes some firefights a bit more awkward because you're kind of open to more shots. They've also removed the doors on the toilets in here, which I guess if you wanted privacy, you know, bad times for you. We should also probably have a quick talk about how the items work in this version. So the items are still usable, but you have to go into the start menu to use them, and you have to sort of come out of the start menu pushing the item that you want. So there's a hollow Duke there for some random reason. So much like the PS1 and the PC versions of Duke Nukem 3D, you can't actually save her. Again though, like everything in this version feels a bit sped up in terms of voice acting. Duke's lines all feel a bit sped up, and the women's voices when you talk to them, they're sped up as well. So that's weird. There's also something with the AI in this version of this game, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but the AI is a lot more aggressive in this version of the game. Like, the enemies will actually sort of walk from great distances just to get you. In the original Duke Nukem, they kind of will stay behind cover and they'll sort of be a bit slower. But in this version, as you can see here, they will literally just sort of swamp an area and start sort of waiting for you. So the enemy behaviour is very slightly different. And this is also very slightly different because instead of shooting the lady herself, we actually just shoot the side of her. The crack's actually over there, which is interesting. Makes me wonder if there was a limitation on like the texture that they could use when that's blown up and having it move, like with the lady still moving on it. You still get your mirrors in this version of the game though, so that's something, I guess. So I'm going to show you here how items work. So you can raise yourself up by kind of pushing the right combination of buttons. Is this secret still here? Yes, it is. And yeah, to unuse an item, you've got to go into the menu and you've got to do it that way. It's a bit laborious, not gonna lie. You also can't destroy what's on TV screen, so that's kind of like the other console versions. So we're going to fly around here. You'll also notice that they've got rid of the secret area there where you could get your hands on a secret jetpack. At least from what I've been able to tell. Like, I can't see it there. So yeah, they've lowered that area significantly, making it kind of feel a lot more claustrophobic here. But yeah, this looks very similar to the PC version, but trust me, when you're playing it, it has a slightly different feel to it. So we're going to wrap up this level by going into the arcade here and taking out all the enemies up here. The explosion there is also a lot less dramatic because it doesn't actually envelop the whole arcade, it just has that little bit over there which acts as a shortcut back to the cinema. Duke also doesn't say his line there, which is kind of disappointing. But you can see this takes you back to the cinema room. You can kind of jump in here. Gonna make use of the med kit there. And there's also some pipe bombs there, which is interesting because normally the only way you can get the pipe bombs is to go into that secret apartment. But in this version they just kind of put them there for you to find, which is nice of them, I guess. You can see as well, this looks different. The way the lighting is utilised in this version is different. Let's have a quick look up here as well, just because I want to see if there's actually something there. I don't see anything there, so unless there's something, unless I'm missing something, I don't think they've actually got rid of that jetpack area. So that was Hollywood Holocaust, and I'll be honest with you, it's not a terrible interpretation of the level. It's definitely not among the stronger ones, so I don't think it stacks up with the PC version. Some of the changes are interesting though, and kind of just show you how much of a struggle it was to get this game onto some of these consoles in this generation. The Sega Saturn was a strong machine, but it didn't quite match up to the PS1 in terms of power, and you can kind of see that in the way that the level's limitations have kind of presented themselves with various changes to kind of accommodate that. So we're going to save and head into Red Light District here. Now what we're going to do, we'll do this level as well, because I do think that so immediately as we enter the level there's no elevator. That's interesting. So instead of like dropping in like you normally would with the elevator, you just kind of end up sort of stood there.
I needed that.
Gonna grab that med pack. So you can see there's a bit of extra geometry around the outside of the level here. We'll have a look at that in a second. Just gonna have a quick drink here. I'll get myself up to 30 and then use the med pack. But it is cool that you can still make use of those to regain health. But if you look up top there, you can actually see they've added a bit of geometry to kind of fill out the space a bit more. That part isn't different though, so it's not like the N64 version where you can see the train station at the top. Nor is this area a Duke Burger, so it is interesting how all these different console versions tried to handle these fairly large levels. Take you out on top. Another thing as well, and I should probably point this out because it's probably, I don't know if it's coming across very well in the video. A lot of these firefights feel a lot different, so there's no real incentive to kind of move around as quickly because everything feels just a bit more stiffer in this version to kind of handle and control. It's weird. It's very hard to kind of articulate. They've also put a door here, which was definitely not in the PC version. So, we should probably talk about one big limitation of this version of the game. There is no crouching for you to control. Effectively, the game will crouch you when it thinks you need to crouch. But other than that, you're basically on your... you can't. So you kind of have to go to a space where you need to crouch. Also, no swinging door there, which is very disappointing. It's not so much of a problem because crouching is kind of only used in specific situations, but the fact that the game lets you jump on your own but not crouch is interesting. So as you can see, we are going through the porno shop here, the adult bookstore. You can see as well when we turn around here, they've actually got rid of the secret in the corner there. So normally there's a Holo Duke in the corner behind that wall, but they've just got rid of it and they've said we'll just take the Holo Duke. So that's 3 Holo Dukes you can grab up to this point in the first 2 levels, which is way too many Holo Dukes, let me tell you. You'll also notice here that when you push yourself against like surfaces like that, the game will crouch you down automatically. So that's kind of showing off the thing I was discussing earlier on. It's weird seeing how all these like book textures are warping. So that doesn't open up like it does in the PC version. In the PC version it kind of opens outwards, but in this one it just kind of raises up. So yeah, we can't do anything about that. See, normally that's where I'd crouch in order to shoot the barrel there. Oh, lovely. Bring that up. Take you out and then come in here. It is cool that they still try to use the mirror effect, so there's no... They do try to kind of give you the Duke Nukem 3D experience here. I swear in the PC version this room's a lot darker as well. So I want to grab that. If the bar stool will move out of the way. There's also a pretty funny thing that you're going to see in a second when we head towards the blue key card. Basically, the enemies in this version of the game don't actually sort of get shadow on them when they're in the dark. So they all kind of light up like Christmas trees. Meaning this area is a lot less tense than I think it was intended to be. Take you out. There's an atomic health here which I want to grab. So yeah, you can still interact with the items, like the light switches and such, which is pretty cool. That functionality made it. Oh, that lift just took me up automatically. I was expecting to press that. Can I go down on this? Yes, I can. So they've got rid of the sign here saying Duke Nukem must die, which, you know, it's only a small thing, but it's kind of sad because it does kind of add character to this level. So you can see that the explosion here is a little less dramatic than it is in the PC version, and that building geometry goes all the way around, so it kind of looks like there's another neighbourhood to the left hand side here, which there isn't. I swear this area is a bit smaller. Like, I'm convinced that this area is just ever so slightly smaller than it is in the PC version. One change as well is the way that this sort of area behaves. So they've actually changed the layout of this ever so slightly, and not even in a way that most people would even care about, but like there's actually like a fork, there's like a U-bend there. I'm guessing so that you can't like load too much of this area in at once, so you can't look at it all. But again, like the way the textures kind of work here, the toxic sludge there is interesting. Oh my god, did I just see that? Oh, so this is where the texture warping gets a bit hilarious, because it kind of makes some of this texture work here seem very unfortunate. But you can still jetpack around, and you still can sort of explore using the jetpack, so that is a good thing at least. You can't go up to that building, unfortunately, so there's nothing of note there. I think there's a secret building in front of us here somewhere. There's a secret room in here somewhere. And normally I think it's in the multiplayer section of the game, but I'm pretty sure we can access it if I go looking for it. If I remember at the end of the level, I'll come back and do that. I also love how big the keycard pad there was. It was massive, like almost unnecessarily large. So we're just going to take out the enemies in here. we're gonna take this out here. Again, like, they've done a good job of recreating these rooms, so it's clear that, like, they really went out of the way to try and make these levels feel as close as they could within the limitations set by the engine that they're using here. Let's go up here and let's throw a pipe bomb in there. I'm not a fan of how you have to sort of pause the game to make that kind of happen there. Again, the pipe bombs seem a bit more powerful in this version, especially if the enemies are stood right next to them.
Shake it, baby.
Oh, so you can still interact with the women here, that's good. And he still shows up. Now you'll notice as well that there's no moving image here, it's just a static image of the O.J. Simpson car chase, which, you know, fine. Now, normally a bunch of pig cops come around this corner and make my life a bit of a misery here, but not this time. So let's go in here. So you can see there, like, the game automatically makes you crouch. I don't know if I like that, to be honest, because being able to crouch can be useful on the fly. But as we head towards the back end of this level, we'll have to see how they handle this nudie bar in here. So the N64 version had this as like a loading bay for the Duke Burger, while the PS1 version keeps the titty bar. So what are we going to see in here? Wow, we're getting a very colorized version of this room. Wow, those are some deep colors, aren't they? Although you'll notice, if you can hear it, there's actually no music specifically for the nightclub. So one of the reasons for that is because the Saturn version of this game didn't have like the best soundtrack, the most like full soundtrack of Duke Nukem. So it just kind of makes do with what it has, and unfortunately that's one of the tracks that kind of doesn't make it in here. It kind of feels a bit weird coming in here with all this stuff, with all this lighting and all these women, and there being no like music to go with it. It does kind of rob this of like atmosphere, which is a bit of a shame in my opinion. It's the same but it's different, and it looks the same but it definitely has a different vibe going on in here, which, wow, she does actually show them to us, which is, I didn't expect that, to be honest. I kind of thought they'd go down the N64 route of just having them not like interact with us. So of course the way out of here is to go through the air duct here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw my pipe bomb down here, and we'll try to take care of the pig cops down here. I have to say that at its core, this still feels very much like a Duke Nukem game. It feels slightly different to play, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that in a, when you actually are playing this, it does kind of handle differently, so you kind of have to come in with that in mind. Nice. Like I said, the explosive range on that rocket then was really quite large, because it took out all the bodies that were on the floor as well. That's annoying. It wouldn't auto target onto the pig cop there. We'll take you down, and then we'll come over here, get rid of you. But at least they've got the coloured lighting in here, you know. One thing I will say about the N64 version of this game, it has very muted colours, so it does still have them, but it kind of has them a lot more muted. And they're nowhere near as interesting to look at. So let's walk our head around here. Just gonna come here and let them come to me because I haven't got that much health here. You can see that this is still very much the same sort of ending to the level. In the N64 version, the secret exit's just behind us there, but I'm actually just going to do this because I don't want to die here. But yeah, this is a very fascinating port of Duke Nukem 3D. I've never actually played this one, so I'm actually thinking about maybe doing a full playthrough of this at some point, sort of going through all the levels and such. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So they just have bars. I can't even move here. So yeah, that was Duke Nukem 3D's first 2 levels on the Sega Saturn version. I've never played this. I actually found it really interesting to look at all the differences. I wonder what you guys thought, let me know in the comments. And yeah, if you want to see me do a full playthrough of this, I'm actually very tempted. Let me know what your thoughts of the Sega Saturn version of Duke Nukem 3D are in the comments, and thanks for watching.